good. We are on chapter 13,
Right.
item 7, invite the poor and the lame.
Yes.
And this is the chapter that deals with do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Let's read.
Okay. Invite the poor and the lame. Give without expecting recompense. 7. He also said to the one who had invited him, whenever you give a dinner or supper, do not invite your friends, your brothers, your relatives, or your wealthy neighbors, so that they will invite you in their turn and thus repay what their neighbors, so that they will invite you in their turn and thus repay what they received from you. But whenever you give a banquet, invite the poor, the lame, and the maimed, and the blind, and you will be happy because they have no means of repaying you, for you will be rewarded at the resurrection of the righteous. Having heard these words, one of those who were at the table said to him, happy is he who eats bread in the kingdom of God. Luke. Number 8. Whenever you give a banquet, says Jesus, do not invite your friends, but the poor and the lame instead. These words are absurd if taken literally, but are sublime if one searches for the spirit in them. Jesus could not have meant to say that instead of friends, one must bring his or her table beggars off the street. His language was nearly always figurative, and for people incapable of grasping the delicate nuances of thought, he used forceful imagery, producing the effect of blaring colors. The foundation of his thought is revealed in these words. You will be blessed because they have no means of repaying you, which means that one should not do good with recompense in mind, but for the sole pleasure of doing it. In order to provide a lively comparison, he said to invite the poor to your banquets, because you know that they can do nothing to repay you. By banquets, one must understand not a repast, but per se, but rather participation in the abundance that one enjoys. These words may also be applied in a more literal sense, however. How many persons invite to their tables only those who can do them the honor, as they say, or who can invite them in their turn? Others, on the other hand, find satisfaction in inviting less fortunate relatives or friends. Well, who does not have such persons in his own family? It is at times a way to render them a great service without showing it, without going out to bring in the blind and the lame. They practice Jesus' maxim, if they do it out of benevolence and without ostentation, and if they know how to disguise the benefit with sincere cordiality.
Okay. I just want to give a warning. I'm having some problem with the lights, with the energy in the house. They are working on it. If I lose, I'm gonna have to go into the cell phone, okay? So just be aware if everything goes black, it's because I lost power and I might have to go into the cell phone without trying not to do it.
Okay.
Okay, hopefully it will stay okay for the hour.
Hopefully.
For some reason, when I was reading this passage last night, the preface of the book Liberation came to my mind.
Mm.
And if you guys recall, is the tale of the little fish that leaves the pond, explores the vast world, see the wonders of it, and return to the pond and invite everyone else to go with him and enjoy a much greater world, a much greater happiness that they can live confined in that little pond, right? And then I made an analogy for some reason with Jesus when I was reading this passage. The one who passed to the experience that we passed, one they have to go through the steps that taken now and have reached the level of Christ returns to teach us, to open up our minds, our vision to the grandeur of ourselves and what is there for us if we take the steps, take what's needed to reach, you know, that immensity that awaits us, just like the little fish left the little tiny pond that the once they thought was the whole universe and conquered the ocean. And I put myself as one of the fish in that pond, listening to that little tiny fish. Would I have believed him? Would I have taken the chances and followed him? Would I have the courage to get out of my level of comfort and do something that was up to that point not even conceivable? And I was listening, and I was reading this. Jesus come to the guys, and a bunch of people were there and says, you know what? Every time that you give a feast, forget about your family and friends and loved ones. Go out the street and get the beggars and get the lame, put them on your table, and then you reach true happiness. I mean, I personally would say this guy is nuts. I don't know what kind of funny cigarette he's smoking, but I'm out of it. You know, but there was one of them who understood it, and they said, "Happy is who eats bread in the kingdom of God." There is at least one of them was able to grasp this message, and if you continue living our lives, only takes things in the very literal sense, we are doomed to failure. If you live our lives afraid of taking chances on doing something that is a little bit outside of the box, we are doomed to not being able to explore the wonders that is out there for us. It does require a certain courage, a certain faith to take that steps. And going outside of the boxes, also not only in the literal sense, but in the sense of read between the lines. It's easy for us to understand, or no, it's not easy for us to understand. It's too hard for us to understand. But it's perhaps easier after Spiritism come in, after the spirit of truth break down those teachings of Christ, kind of digest it for us. So all you have to do now is swallow it, and it's still that fine to swallow it. The teachings are not easy. It requires some intelligence of the heart to grasp. For us now, can you imagine those guys then at that time to be able to translate a message, a statement like that, and put it in a more abstracted sense? That of course Christ is not telling that you're supposed to disconsider your loved ones, your family, your friends, and only consider the beggars, the leprosies, the lame, the ones that smells bad because they don't have access to a shower. Of course, now we can see that that's not the case. We have expanded our ability to think in a more abstracted sense with help of so many who had slowly break down those teachings for us, and it's still find it hard to, if not understand, at least to practice. But it's obvious that Jesus, if we accept Jesus as being a perfect spirit that is all love and all goodness towards us, they didn't ask us to put anyone above anyone, but to put, but if anything else, make a prioritize the needs of others. And of course, those who among us have, you know, a socioeconomic favorable situation that they don't need us to cook them food. Perhaps should think of those who doesn't need. Perhaps you should think of those who, let's say, like at Christmas time now, you're giving gifts that people don't need just because they are our friends, because they're our family, and we fill up our houses of little gifts that people does gives to us and have no place to put it. It does not because we don't really need enough of them. Why don't you really kind of prioritize the need of others and see those who really need, and that little money that I was gonna buy something for my sister who doesn't need absolutely anything, why don't I give to someone who really need? That would really make a big difference in his or her life. I think in that sense, the teachings of Christ make tremendous amount of sense. Um, and of course, in here, he's suggesting to us at least that we make everyone kind of equal, in the sense that our friends, our family, be somewhat equal with those who are strange to us. If you are able to do that, then you'll be able to make these priorities and who needs more, who would benefit more of what the little that I have to offer. And I'm primarily talking here in terms of beneficence or existentialism, providing material needs. I'm not even going into the moral needs, because the moral needs is equal. At the moral level, that's where things becomes really equator. There is pretty much a flat line, because all of us, with or without the material needs, have the moral needs. All of us need a little bit of attention. All of us need an ear to listen to us. All of us need a word of encouragement in many different aspects. And of course, the teachings of Christ expand beyond the existentialism. It extends beyond of providing bread, shelter, food, clothes. It goes beyond that at all times. When Jesus speaks of benevolence, he speaks of benevolence of the charity in a complete sense. But in this particular passage over here, I kind of focus more in the material things of the people who are in tremendous need of out there, that would really benefit, not even of a banquet, but just a nice sandwich. I'm not even talking about just a stale bread that is that's far for what we are able to do for the poor. You know, a nice sandwich that we can make at home and give to someone who is hungry. That person, in terms of priorities, will benefit a lot more than that, than a real feast banquet that we can invite our families or friends to benefit from it, especially at this time of the year that we're talking about giving. They receive 6-7 calls a day of people asking for this gift and that gift, for this and for that institution. We should be thinking more about this passage. And of course, the moral lesson here is really, when we give without any expectance of return. That we give without aiming at any kind of return. Because then you run the risk of receiving that return right here now when we're done with. And even without expecting the return from the divinity. Because if we press charity here so we can buy ourselves a real estate in heaven, we already, it's no longer charity, it's an exchange of favors. I do something here for you, need over here, God, and you get me a nice place in, I don't know, in Oslar or in heaven, whatever you think. That's already that becomes a bargain. And we can't bargain with God. We can bargain with divinity. You can bargain with absolutely justice. Because through charity, there is no bargaining. Through charity, there is just doing good for the sake of doing good. Doing good for the internal satisfaction of doing good. There is nothing in return. The pleasure is the doing good itself, and that suffices everything. That's the true message here. And I think especially this time of the year, we should reflect a lot in this kind of teachings from Christ. Any comments? Okay, so let's read a little more.
The Spirit's teachings. Material charity and moral charity. Number 9. Let us love one another and do unto others what we would want them to do unto us. Every religion, every moral possible is contained in these 2 precepts. If you were to abide by them in this world, you would be perfect. There would be neither hatred nor dissent. Furthermore, I will say that there would be no more poverty, because from the surplus of the table of each rich person, many poor people would be fed. And in the dark back streets where I lived during my last incarnation, you would not see poor mothers dragging along their miserable children in need of everything. You who are rich, think about this a bit. Help unfortunates as much as you can. Give so that one day God will repay the good you have done. And when you leave your earthly envelope, you will find a cortege of thankful spirits who will receive you at the threshold of a more blessed world. If only you can know the joy I experienced in meeting on the other side those whom I was able to help during my last life. Therefore, love your neighbor, love him or her as you love yourself, because you now know that unfortunate fellow you are rejecting and keeping away is perhaps a brother, a father, or a friend. And then what despair you will feel upon recognizing him in the world of spirits. I want you to understand fully what moral charity entails, the type that everyone can exhibit and which one causes nothing materially, but which is nonetheless very difficult to put into practice. Moral charity consists in giving support to one another, and it is what you practice the least on the low order world where you are incarnate for now. Believe me, there is a great merit in knowing how to keep quiet and let a more ignorant person speak. This is yet another kind of charity, knowing how to turn a deaf ear when a mocking word escapes the mouth accustomed to scorn, not paying any attention to the spirit of disdain that greets your entry amongst peoples who often wrongly think they are above you, whereas in the spirit life, the only true life, they are sometimes far from it. These are meritorious acts, not of humility, but of charity, because not paying attention to someone else's wrongs portrays moral charity. This sort of charity, however, must not hinder the other kind. Remember especially not to neglect your neighbor. Remember all that I have told you. You must always remember that the poor person whom you reject perhaps houses a spirit who used to be dear to you, and who for the time being is in position beneath yours. I I myself met another, again, one of the poor of your earth, whom I had fortunately been able to help a few times, and from whom I must now in turn ask for help. Remember that Jesus said that we are all brothers and sisters. Always think about that before rejecting the leper or the beggar. Goodbye. Think of those who suffer and pray for them. Sister Rosalie. Mm.
Okay.
Okay.
So the Spirit's teaching, material versus moral charity. I think that we already covered that. That's easy to understand. If you apply these teachings of Christ, love one another as we love one another, as we love ourselves, and do to others only what would like others to do to us in the same situation, which is a new paradigm that he brought to us, because before that is don't do to others what you like, what others would not like, what you would not like others to do to you. It is different, because now Jesus is asking us to be proactive in the exercise of goodness. That do not do something bad, okay, but that's not enough anymore. With his coming, with his new paradigm, is be proactive, go and do it. And that's why he came himself instead of send someone to teach us. That's why he came himself and did it, to exemplify what does it means to be good, what does it means to exercise charity. And if we take this proactive step of looking for the need of others, and we our best to fulfill that need, and if others did the same towards us, there will be no room for unhappiness. There will be no room for quarrels. There will be no room for fights. There will be no rooms for crimes, because everything that I do is of good. Because all that we want for ourselves is of good, except in some pathological cases, which are not going go to the exceptions. We're going to go with the average. And in the average, we want good for ourselves. In the average, we want good for our loved ones. In the average, we want peace. We want good health. We want some kind of insurance that if something happens tomorrow, if I come in with a new diagnosis of a fulminant kind of cancer and I have 3 months of life, which can happen to any one of us. God knows what's brewing within us right now, that you have some insurance that all of the ones will be taken care of, that things will be okay for them. And we all want that. And if we can provide that to others and others can provide that to us, won't that be kind of living in a paradise? Wouldn't that be a kind of living in the state? This person would be perfect. I don't know if that perfect is, I won't go that far, but definitely live in a state of a happiness that it's right now not even conceivable in the world that we live. And why is that? It's exactly because we don't practice this. If you were more careful with our expenses and our waste, if you didn't waste anything, if you have the care of watch what is really necessary to us, and make sure that they were superfluous is passing through those who have greater need than us. There will be no poverty, because we ourselves will take care of this problem. You have a tendency to we have a tendency to expect the governments, the states, the rich to take care of those problems, and you forget that our own responsibility of taking care of these problems. The rewards comes naturally, without expectation, without aiming at those rewards. It's a natural process that we will enjoy the rewards of our actions, when they are good, of course. The very obvious material here in our world right now, if we eliminate the necessity of others to come and try to break our house to steal something, we didn't have to build those forts around our house, because everyone will have the minimum necessary to have some kind of comfort and dignity. The need of trying to steal to do something like that would likely disappear. The need, the one feeling being receiving assistance, receiving care from others would limit their needs to commit crimes, to get into chemical dependencies. Why people get into chemical dependence? Why lead people into chemical dependencies? Perhaps if we practice this rule more often, we'd eliminate a lot of bad problems that generates really serious consequences to us. We're just paying more attention to the need of others, the needs of the beyond the material, but also in the moral sense. If we're more careful at looking at them and find their needs and doing our best to supply those needs, we believe in a much better world here. Only the moral sense, only right here now. It's not even talking about what will be reward in the true spiritual life. Would by far minimize crimes, by far minimize chemical dependencies, if you just pay attention to others a little bit more. And naturally, again, and as a natural consequence, we would get the reward once you leave this physical body and go back to the spiritual world, and we see those who receive some kind of assistance for us, or perhaps later we will be in need of some kind of assistance, and they will be there for us just the way that we are for them here. I don't think that the good spirits, or think that Jesus or Christ kind of tests us. I think they provide us opportunities. And many of those opportunities is perhaps someone knocking on our door and needing something. I keep imagining here, as I was reading this, perhaps the good spirituality trying to assist a needy person out there in need of either material or moral, very often both kind of charity, and have a hard time, do a really hard work guiding that individual to knock at our door. Because now we are spiritual, so studying this right now, we are listening, we are talking about the teachings of Christ right now, and we are doing our best to be able to understand and to practice those teachings. And then, so the good spirits give us the opportunity. Okay, they send us someone in need to knock our door. And when that someone knocks at our door, what do we do? How do we behave? Do you waste the opportunity to practice exactly what we're talking about here? Or do we embrace the opportunity and apply just what we are studying, just what we are talking about here? Of course, each one answers to him or herself, but aware that this is a school, you are students. Any students, as any students are here to learn and to apply as we learn it. But are we learning? Are we trying to apply what we learn? Each one has to answer themselves. Um, Another point beyond the opportunity that those good spirits give to us is who are those that we meet along the way, who come straight at us, who looks in our eyes and asks us something. Who is that one that when you go into the subway and you sit over there and see the person says, by the facial expression, with some kind of despair, some kind of really moral pain, are we able to at least give a smile and give a word of encouragement to say, don't give up, stay strong? Are we afraid of to use the word God? Very often we are. Don't say someone, don't give up. God is good. What stops us from doing such a thing? And is that perhaps one of the greatest, perhaps moral charity then we can pass to someone? A little word that brings encouragement, that renews hope. To say the word God to someone, why are we so timid to show our faith? If you're gonna give now $1 to the person on the subway on the street, that's fine. With that dollar, this guy going to buy some potato chips, going to buy another drink, whatever they do, it's their own thing. It's gonna go away and become lost in itself rather quickly. But what about that word encouragement? So yeah, things are off now. I can see that you're not going through good times right now, but stay strong in that path. Don't give up. Don't rebel. God is good. God is with us. That might go a long way. That might be everlasting in that mind and that heart. $1 goes quickly. And why is the practice of material charity, the giving of goods, the work I like to call assistencialism, to provide material goods, to supply material necessities, easier than the moral charity? I understand that the difference is that the material charity we give what we have, or we give very often the supply of our possessions. And the moral charity, it is different. In the moral charities, we don't give what we have, we give what we are. We give ourselves. And that becomes a lot more difficult. If you already have a hard time to give a coat that is sitting in our closet for the whole year that I have not used, that I'm not gonna use, but it's still hold tight to it and not give it away. Can we imagine giving of ourselves, giving us to others? It is definitely a lot more difficult than to do that. And in the sense of the material charity, it just came to my mind now as I spoke of the clothes in our closet. let us make sure, especially this time of the year, that when we give things, you give things of that can actually be good. You don't give garbage to others, right? Like I have that t-shirt with 4 or 5 holes in it already, you know, that I could not even use to clean up the floor. Why am I gonna give that someone? That very often becomes the reverse of charity. That very often becomes it's to tell someone that you are deserving of my garbage. You know, if you think that, and many like many of us are very proud for it. We are in need. We need things, but we are still proud for. And 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 part of charity is to have the indulgence with the difficulties of others. So when you give of ourselves, give something of us to others, let's make sure that it's something useful that dignifies that person and not humiliate that person. And in a combination of practicing the two charities together, the material goods with the moral charity combined as one thing. So instead of taking that old clothes and say, here, I don't need these anymore, you can take it. Or I have to say, here, I have this clothes, and it's very good shape, very can be used for a while. Um, I hope that you'd accept that or be very happy if you take that and you use it. And if it does not fit you properly, maybe you can pass along to a family member, to a loved one. It's the same old clothes, but it's completely two different of giving one. The one it's getting rid of things that you don't need anymore. And the other one is the exercise of charity. And it's the ability of giving it in a way that the individual does not feel humiliated, does not feel being putting down in any way. This is when you combine the two charities as one single. In reality, is one single charity, right? We break it down for dietetics. The ability to listen. It requires a degree of humbleness to listen to someone, especially if someone is saying things that is not really agreeable to your understanding, or if someone saying something that you have passed beyond that you understand much more than that, but that's where that person is right now. They still didn't get to the next level yet, and they are showing off what they know when you're there patiently listening. That's charity. The way they use the truth. Make sure that you do not truth as a sharp blade to cut the pride of others. The ability to speak only in accordance to Socrates, only if it's the truth, if it's good, if it's useful, all things together at the same time. That is charity. Do not waste opportunity to keep your mouth shut. That very often is charity, moral charity. Not everyone is ready for some truth that we have understood, the little teeny pieces of truth that we have understood through our own effort. That little tiny piece of truth may be not what that person needs at that moment. And you grasp that understanding if you keep our mouth shut and listen to what the other person is saying. But out of pride, we wanted to put it out there, only what we have, and not even measuring the extent of the consequences of our words may have, not always beneficial. The truth is not always beneficial. This is moral charity. And you see here that it goes so far beyond of existentialism to be able to have that indulgence, to understand the limitations of others. This is charity. To be able to forgive what others have done to us, this is charity. How many of us are able to do it? So in other words, what makes it so easy to exercise material charity, or perhaps easier than moral, is because the moral, first of all, you have to gain it. You have to conquer it. You cannot buy in a store. You have to internalize it to be able to externalize it. And when we externalize it, we are giving of ourselves. And if you already have a hard time giving, the old clothes in our closets, the things that we have to give of ourselves is exponentially more difficult. But it is worth it to try to practice until it becomes a natural thing for us, and not something that you do with tremendous effort. And you won't gonna conquer the ability to do that if you take the steps, doing little by little, until you can do more and more and more, until it's become the natural for us. Okay, any comments?
Elmo, you've hit it at the top of the nail. So beautiful. What we're just saying, the moral side, and and how we need to understand, especially at this beautiful time that we are now celebrating. Everyone is going all over the place, but you stop and listen to what you're saying. Sometimes it just, we forget, I don't know, give an excuse. Okay, whatever. But I thank you so much for opening this up. And it's not a coincidence that we're studying this today, is it? I don't think so.
It's amazing, right?
It's I don't know what to say. I'm here sitting listening to you. I'm saying I don't believe this. How perfect could this be? How you opening our eyes to this, and because especially now the family, it's Christmas time, and oh, you want to give this, you want to give that. You don't stop and think. Wait, whatever you're giving, does that person really need it? If you have grandchildren and they have $5, what are you gonna go spend another for the sixth doll? You got to think of these things, even though we want to give as much as we can for them to be happy. But look at the ones that don't have anything. I am so grateful for what you're doing here with this and explaining it to the to understand that we have to think of these things. And sometimes we just go on living every day. Oh well, okay, we're gonna do this, we do that. You do a beautiful example of the closet clothes. I mean, how perfect is this? If anyone doesn't understand it, oh gosh, we need to do much, much more, understand it, study it more, ingrain it in our blood, in our spirit, everything, to do as much as we can to become better to those who are so much in need, especially at this time, especially at this time. And what you said about God, you see homeless people in the street, it breaks your heart, and you go and you give what you have, and is what you say. Why are we afraid to say, God bless you, be strong, God is with you? All I can say is, God, be with God, have a good day. But it is true. Uh, Say that to the person. A lot of people probably hold back because of that. But it's so beautiful to tell them that no matter what. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for this beautiful lesson. Thank you.
It's interesting. This morning, for whatever reason, a friend came to my mind, and I haven't seen for quite some time. Someone very dear to my heart, and I sent a text. I sent a text to say, "Is everything okay? We haven't talked for a while." That was it. And I received the call back. It's saying it's amazing. It's almost if you are in synchrony, because I just received a bad news that a loved one is going to this kind of hardship. Don't need to go into details, which lead us to believe, to be certain that we are indeed vibrating energies towards one another consistently. And if you just think of others a little bit, we created that connection.
Yeah.
In the exercise of charity, we can go so far beyond than, again, you give $1 to the person. Yes, it's good, it's helpful, but it's going to consume that dollar in a minute. It's going to go away and it's gone. But to
Right.
send a vibration, even if you don't have the courage, even if you are too timid, and we are again very timid to put out our faith, to show people our beliefs, and if you just mentalize that individual in a prayer and send that words, believe, don't lose hope, don't rebel against the divine justice because it never fails. If you just really send that with all of our heart, it will help. It will make a difference.
Absolutely.
This individual will receive it. If we are able to overcome our difficulties and able to sit like that person and say, even a low voice, I see that things are not going as well as they could, but they will get better.
Yes.
I have faith.
Yes.
Have faith, you too. It makes a tremendous difference. That not gonna go away easily,
No.
like the dollar bill will.
Yeah.
That will have a much bigger impact. The dollar bill is important.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember the Sermon of the Mountain,
Yeah.
Jesus multiplied the fish and the bread first.
Right.
He made sure that they supplied the material need first. Because I'm sorry, you cannot hear someone speaking of charity and beauty with the noise of this hungry stomach.
Of course. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Again, the beautiful passage of Mother Teresa when the reporter was following her, always giving her a hard time, saying that she's wrong to give the fish, they should teach the poor how to fish. And she said, but my poor are so weak, they cannot hold the fishing pole. I have to feed them first, so then they can go and fish. I have to feed them first, so then you, with your charity, you can provide him the fishing pole so he can go and fish. It's important to notice that the material charity, it is important, and very often it precedes the moral one.
Yes.
Don't talk to me about Jesus and how and what charity when I'm starving, I have no food, and I have not been able to shower in 3 months. I need
Mm-hmm.
some dignity first. Then I'll be able to listen. So it's not that we are here um, degrading the value of the moral of material needs. No, they are first in their priority. I empty bag cannot stand. You fill up a bag with rice with beans, then it can stand, but an empty bag cannot stand.
Absolutely.
But that is the easiest part. To give the rice and the beans is easy, because that is what we have. To give what we are, that's harder. to give of ourselves, it's harder, but it's much more everlasting. It will go much, much farther than the rights and the bills, which are extremely important. And this time of the year also, in this social climate that we live, I'm not gonna say don't give the superfluous little thing to your loved ones, since this is unfortunately the norm that we live these days. But just let's try to go a little bit above that. Let's try to go a little beyond that, because if we again just stay like like the other fishes in the pond, we're never gonna get out through the tiny little holes and go through all the trials and difficulties until you reach the wonders of the ocean. We have to have courage. We have to know that there is some sacrifice that you have to do in order to leave the little pond, get out of a level of comfort to gain something much, much wonderful that lies ahead for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So shall we continue?
You can read a little more.
Number 10. Okay. My friends, I have heard many of you say to yourselves, how can I practice charity? Often I don't even have enough myself. Charity, my friends, may be practiced in many ways. You can practice charity in thought, word, and in deed. In thought, by praying for the forsaken poor who have died without having even seen the light. A prayer from the heart will console them. In words, by providing your everyday companions some good advice, by saying to people embittered through desperation and deprivation, and who blaspheme the name of the Most High. I was once as you are. I suffered and was unfortunate, but I believed in Spiritism. And as you can see, I am fortunate now. To the elderly who say to you, it's useless. I am at the end of my journey. I will die as I have lived. You can say, God holds out the same justice for all of us. Remember the workers of the last hour. To youths who are already corrupt by the company they keep and who wander along life's pathways, ready to yield to evil temptations, say, God is watching you, my dear children. And do not be afraid to repeat these gentle words to them often. They will end up germinating in their young minds, and instead of little thugs, you will have made men and women of them. This is also a form of charity. Many among you say nonsense. There are so many of us on the earth. God cannot possibly see all of us. Listen well, my friends. When you are on the top of the mountain, don't. Okay.
Don't you see the billions of grains of sand covering the mountain?
Uh, listen to it often. Wait a minute. Okay. There are many among you say nonsense. There are so many of us on the earth. God cannot possibly see all of us. Listen well, my friends. When you're on the top of the mountain, don't you see the billions of grains of sand covering that mountain? Well, then, God sees you in the same way. He allows you your free will, just as you let those grains of sand move about at the whim of the wind that scatters them, except that God in his infinite mercy has placed at the bottom of your heart a watchful sentinel called conscience. Listen to it. It will offer you only good counsel. Sometimes you deaden it by opposing it with the spirit of evil, and then it falls asleep, falls silent. Nonetheless, you can be sure that your poor forsaken conscience will make itself heard as soon as you allow it to perceive the shadow of remorse. Listen to your conscience, question it, and you will often find yourselves comforted by its counsels. My friends, my friends, a general furnishes a new banner for each new regiment. I offer this maxim of Christ: love one another. Practice this maxim, gather around its standard, and you will receive happiness and consolation, a protective spirit.
I like this message very much from this protective spirit. And what I like a lot about this message is because it brings to us the kind of faith that we need to have in order to exercise through charity. There are times I think it's normal for us to be discouraged and even to doubt the the power of goodness, the power of love when we see everything that goes around us. That sometimes we even doubt the existence of God, as Mother Teresa in her biography has stated in multiple times. She had even doubt the existence of God for everything that is she witnessed, everything she saw around her. That even Mother Teresa have at some point doubted the existence of God. And if we may experience even in our mind the existence of God, it's very easy perhaps for us at a point doubt the value of the exercise of charity. Or if we believe in God, to believe that really following those precepts of Christ will lead us to something much bigger. Going back to that little fish, to believe that little fish that it is worth it to go to the sacrifices in order to be able to escape that little pond and reach the ocean and the splendors of the ocean. That it's worth it to us to know lose some weight so we could fit the little holes and the crackles of that pond and run to something much bigger than that little pond. There is worth it to take chances and get out of a level of comfort. It requires a degree of faith. That's why I like this passage a lot, because this protective spirit reminds us that God is indeed omnipresent, omnipotent, knows each one of us, provides for each one of us in accordance to our needs. If we use as an example the ones who have practiced the big charities that we applaud because it becomes notorious and everybody sees an example is Devout Peter Frank with the Mission of the Way, taking care of thousands of kids and their families. So if you say it's 3,000 kids, in reality it's a lot more than that, because they pick food from home for the family. They provide education for a lot more than the number of kids in there. It's an amazing thing. Start with what? Not even them are able to tell how did they start. They had no money to start. God provides when the effort is there, when the belief, the faith is there. Things goes on. The wonderful passage from Bezerra de Menezes when he was trying to provide some kind of assistance or starting something, the very beginning of his medical school yet, and he needed money to continue his education and things, and he decided he would be a tutor. He would provide some teachings to some people, and first day nobody show up, second day nobody show up, and he couldn't get anybody for him to tutor and make some money so he could afford to go to medical school. all of a sudden come this guy over there that he needs some tutor in mathematics, and the deal would pay would they would supposed to be paying on a weekly basis. So the guy said, "No, what? I can't really do that. I'm gonna pay you for the whole month or for 2 months. I don't remember right now." And all the son is a stranger that nobody ever saw in the city. Go over there and give him whatever months worth of lectures. It only meant was 1 or 2 months, and wasn't exactly what the money that he needed for the whatever project that he had. And then this guy never show up again. To this day, you don't know who was this guy who came in and provide that money. But when we have faith, when we have a project that is worth it, we receive the assistance that we have that we need. Now, there's a little bit of a blind faith, I admit, I agree. But it's a kind of blind faith that propels us forward to do something good, not to have the belief and just sit on it. And I think in this message, this friend is telling us exactly that. I know I have been there. To give, to do, to take those steps forward is sometimes difficult, but it's worth it. I was able to overcome my own limitations, and I was able to look ahead beyond of the little pond and look and try to reach the ocean, and I did. So everyone can do it. And don't ever lose that certainty that we are not alone, that you can go and you can go ahead and love one another. And that is the best recipe for happiness that anyone can possibly give to us. But I do admit that there is a degree of a blind faith in it, that as much as you want to reason a bit. And if you go to the book Genesis, that would be wonderful, wonderful, very good reasons for us not to understand God, but to understand the existence of God, to understand the attributes of God in a very reasonable way. That is still a little tiny degree of a blind faith that God will provide. Then you can go ahead and ask Christ Jesus, be more like the lilies on the valley, right? Which is a repetition from the from Jeremiah, would say the same thing. Trust God. Go ahead and do your things. The same way that the birds are feeding themselves, they're not concerned with tomorrow because they have that blind faith that God will provide for tomorrow as well. Okay, comments? All right, so again, we can do beneficence now.
Okay. Beneficency. In this world, my friends, beneficency will give you the purest and sweetest joys. These joys of the heart that are disturbed neither by remorse nor indifference. Oh, if you could but comprehend all that is great and gentle in the generosity of beautiful souls, that sentiment that makes people look at one another in the same way that they look at themselves, joyfully shedding their clothes in order to give their brother or sister something to wear. My friends, if only you can have no sweeter occupation than that of making others happy. What worldly festivities could compare to those blissful moments when, as representatives of the divinity, you deliver joy to families who have known only the vicissitudes and bitterness of life? When you suddenly see these emaciated faces brighten with hope because okay, emaciated faces brighten with hope because they have no bread. These unfortunates and their children who, not knowing that living means to suffer, scream, cry, and repeat these words that pierce their mother's heart like a sharp dagger. I'm hungry. Oh, understand well how delightful are the feelings of those who see joy reborn where you just moments before they saw only desperation. Understand what your obligations are toward your brothers and sisters. Go, go to meet misfortune. Go especially to help hidden miseries, for they are the most heartbreaking. Go, my dear friends, and remember these words of the Savior. Whenever you clothe one of these little ones, remember that you are doing it to me. Charity, O sublime word that summarizes all virtues. It is you who must lead the peoples of the world to happiness. By practicing you, they shall create infinite joys for themselves in the future, and during their exile on the earth, they shall be their consolation. The foretaste of the joys they shall delight in later when they are united in the bosom of the loving God. It was you, O divine virtue, who provided me with the only moments of happiness that I enjoyed on the earth. May my incarnate brothers and sisters believe the voice of the friend who is speaking to them and tells them, it is in charity that you must seek the peace of the heart, the contentment of the soul, the remedy for the afflictions of life. Oh, whenever you are at the point of accusing God, cast an eye beneath you. Behold how many miseries need relief, how many poor children have no families, how many old people do not have one friendly hand to help them or to close their eyes when death reclaims them. How much good is to do? Oh, do not complain. On the contrary, thank God and lavish handfuls of your sympathy, your love, and your money on all those who, bereft of the things of the world, lavish in suffering and loneliness. Then you shall reap in this world the sweetest joys, and later, only God knows.
Okay.
Okay. Continue. 12.
No, no, thanks.
Okay. Okay.
No, thanks. So, beneficence, the ability of providing something to others that can, just for the matter of didactics again, divided them the giving of alms, the assistencialism, supplying the material necessities that we have in this material, in this physical world. That it's absolutely necessary for us to have some degree of happiness. They done a story out there that said that money did brings happiness. Um, Not going to disagree. The story showed that, but I would say that if money cannot bring happiness, the lack of money can bring sadness. The lack of ability to be self-sufficient, to be able to provide for oneself, for the loved ones, and the physical material necessities can definitely bring sadness. I can imagine someone being happy and hungry, being happy and seeing the sons and daughters malnourished, unable to get education, unable to get clean, good water, unable to get medical care when they are sick. I don't think someone can be happy living those situations. So if money cannot bring happiness, contrary to what study had showed, I'm pretty convinced that the lack of money can bring tremendous amount of sadness in this world that we live today. And of course, when I say money, here I'm meaning material things for food, for shelter, beyond that, for clothes, for education, for medical assistance, right? All those things require material things that I would express, yes, it's money. And beneficence, is the ability to provide those required, necessary things for others when we are in a position to do so, and extend that beneficence beyond that. We have, as I just spoken now, the moral beneficence, the giving of ourselves, the giving of a word, the giving of a prayer, the giving of a smile, the giving of our ears to listen to someone to say the things that one needs to get out of the chest, even if it's things that you don't completely agree to it, but just to be there and listen. The giving of limiting our speech to what is true, good, and useful at that moment, and the three things together, not only one or another. This is also beneficency. And of course, to do without expecting rewards. Of course, to do it without expecting in return. Um, if you would ask, what can we, what can I, what can we do to please God? What can we do to make God happy? That is, in my opinion, tremendous absurd, right? That we can do something to make God happy. That would mean that the happiness of God is limited by our action. If God's perfect, God is not sad, God's not happy, God is God. God is. You know, to me, the greatest definition that Julio gave to us, God is. But if you seek to do what in accordance to the teachings of Christ, in accordance to what is with the laws imprinted in our conscience, then it's to do to others what we would like us to do to us in same situation. In other words, there's an echo there. Okay. Let's see. Okay. It's can you whoever is not mute, can you mute yourself?
How do you mute?
There's an echo. Okay, it's good now. Thanks.
No, not yet.
No, it's good now. It's good now.
Okay.
So then, how can we do things that would be somewhat pleasing to God if, again, you cannot please God, but if you could please God, what is it that we could do? Isn't it obvious that you can only do what would be pleasing to God? It's to take care of His creation, taking care of the brothers and sisters what they need, taking care of the planet, protect the environment, being reasonable, being responsible with what we do, with what we waste and what we don't waste, being responsible and educating ourselves and utilizing our potentials in order to make this world better. That's what would be pleasing to God. If you could imagine that it can be pleasing to God, that's what would take care of of God's creation and not God Himself, because God doesn't need anything from us. So being responsible with our consumptions, being responsible of educating ourselves so you can educate others. Because it's very easy to say, oh, I don't go and teach. Well, not to teach, I have to learn. Is it selfish that I will pay attention to myself or make myself better so I can pass it on to others? Of course not. I cannot teach what I don't. I cannot give what I don't have. I cannot teach things that I am ignorant of. So it is benevolence that you educate yourselves, that we educate ourselves, that you get this message over here that you learn, that we internalize them so you can externalize them as beneficence. Because another definition that you could give to beneficence is the ability to externalize the teachings of Christ. We receive it, we internalize it, it becomes a part of us. So when we put it out, we put a part of us, which is the practice of the teachings of Christ. And that is basically the only thing that we could do if you aim to, in commons over here, to please God. Is to take care of his creations, to take care of our brothers and sisters here, to take care of our environments, take care of our rivers, of our oceans, of our trees, and all those things that generates only positive consequences for us right here, right now, and everlasting in the spiritual world. That comes again as a natural consequence, not as an end, not something that I'm gonna do A so I can get B. That's bargaining, that's no longer charity. But there is a natural process that leads to these consequences. You do good, you receive good. It's a natural law. Something on the chat here, let me see. Good, good, I'm glad. Okay, any comments here? All right, let's do 12 and perhaps we'll stop there.
Okay.
Just a minute. Okay, can you see it?
Yeah, I see it. Number 12, be good and charitable. That is the key to heaven you hold in your hands. All the bliss of eternity is contained in this maxim. Love one another. The soul cannot lift itself to higher spiritual realms except by devotion to one's neighbor. It does not find happiness and consolation except in charitable impulses. Be good, uphold your brothers and sisters, and root out the horrible scourge of selfishness. In fulfilling this duty, you will open to yourselves the way to eternal happiness. Besides, who among you has not felt the heartbeat, its inner joy expand at hearing an account of noble self-sacrifice, of a truly charitable deed? If you would seek only the happiness that a good deed brings, you will remain on the path of spiritual progress. Examples are not lacking. What you lack is goodwill, which is very rare. Behold a multitude of righteous men and women whose memory history has mercifully recorded. Did Christ not tell you everything regarding the virtues? Of charity and love? Why do you put aside his divine teachings? Why do you close your ears to his divine words and your hearts to all his gentle maxims? I wish more interest and faith would be displayed in the Gospels. But you have forsaken this book and have made it a hollow word, a closed letter. This marvelous code is left for forgottenness. Your ills have come only from your intentional abandonment of this summary of the divine laws. So read these ardent pages about Jesus' devotion and meditate on them. Strong men and women, prepare yourselves. Weak men and women, make your meekness and your faith your weapons. Be more persuasive, more constant in spreading of your new doctrine. It is not only encouragement that we have come to give you. It is not only to stimulate your eagerness in virtues that God has allowed us to manifest ourselves to you. If you would so desire, you would merely need God's help and your own will. Spirit manifestations are produced only for those whose eyes are shut and whose hearts are stubborn. Charity is the fundamental virtue that must uphold the entire edifice of earthly virtues. Without charity, none of the others exist. Without charity, there is no hope for a better future, no moral interest to guide us. Without charity, there is no faith, for faith is nothing more than a pure ray of light that makes a charitable soul shine. Charity is the eternal anchor of salvation on all worlds. It is the purest emanation of the Creator Himself. It is His own virtue that He gives to His creatures. How can you fail to recognize such supreme goodness? With this thought in mind, what heart could be so wicked as to repress and expel this holy divine sentiment? What child could be so evil as to repel against the sweet caress that is charity? I do not presume to speak of what I myself did, because the spirits too are modest about their deeds. Nonetheless, I believe that I began one of those works that shall contribute the most to relieving your fellow humans. I have frequently seen other spirits ask for the mission of continuing my task. I have seen them, my gentle and dear brothers and sisters, in their merciful and divine ministry, practicing the virtue I recommend to you with all the joy that such a life of dedication and sacrifice entails. I feel happiness at seeing how much their character is honored, how much their mission is loved and watched over. O righteous men and women of good and strong will, come together as one in order to broadly continue the work of spreading charity. In the very practice of this virtue, you will find your recompense. There is no spiritual joy that will not be provided to you. Starting in your present life, remain united, love one another according to Christ's precepts. Amen. St. Vincent de Paul.
So I think in this past, since we spoke so much of charity, of being this umbrella that encompasses all the virtues, that is the true charity that we are far from attaining, it is required that we gain the ability to be completely selfless, begin to give of ourselves. You need to be selfless. Um, to have the faith that I can provide of myself or provide what I have over here, because I have faith that in doing so, I will not be depleted. God, in His divine uh, providence, will provide what's necessary. To be completely humbled, to to listen again. To listen requires a good degree of humbleness. To be humble, to not impose our beliefs, our understand upon others, understand the limitations of others, to not to measure, to have the care to measure how much someone can receive and will receive with open arms, and what perhaps will create more rebelliousness than renew for faith in those individuals. That requires a degree of humbleness, that you basically are putting others upon you above yourself. I know what I know, and you have to listen. No, yes, I'm measuring of what I know is useful to you, not only truthful, not only good, but useful, and provide exactly only those what's truthful, what's good, and what's useful. That requires a good amount of humbleness and selflessness from us to put others first. That is charity. So charity is this big umbrella that encompasses all the charity, and it requires patience, patience to hear, patience to see that someone is perhaps rejecting everything that we are saying, that you are offering, and still be patient, continue trying to assist those individuals anyway. To invite someone redirect their thoughts and only hear blasphemy words, but then be patient and be humble to the limitations of that person. That is charity. So the exercise of charity is very vast and requires that we put together all the virtues together to truly practice it. And and that's why that he says over here, the oblies of eternity is contained in these maxims: love one another. Because then in the exercise of all the virtues, the natural reward, the natural law of no is the return of the same thing towards us. Again, not because we get aim at that return, but because it's a natural consequence of that return. Let me see here. And it makes a very strong invitation for us spiritists. It seems like he is speaking us directly to us, saying, listen, you have heard from Christ. At the proper time, we came all together to bring back his teachings, whatever have been lost because of your invigilance. And we have now complement what he could not have said before because we are not ready, but now you are ready. And you took the courage to take that step to look at this doctrine and to understand this doctrine, to understand our immortality, to understand the communicability between our plane of existence. It's time for you to go on and act on this knowledge that you are gaining. It is time for you to have that courage, and it says courage, courage. Go and do it, go and exercise it. Because this is not something that we are giving to you for you to learn and appreciate and see how nice it is. No, it's something that is given to you as a new methodology of living a good life. And don't fear, courage, courage. Go and exercise charity. Naturally, each one of us will do it in accordance to our abilities, in accordance to what we have gained, what we have conquered, because no one can give what one does not have. Each one of us at our level, but each one of us able of exercise fully charity. And by fully charities, I mean putting together all the virtues together to the goodness of others, the giving not only of what we have, but what we are, what we have internalized with the help of so many, including St. Vincent with his charity towards us. It's time to pass back, reminding that love cannot be stagnated. Love has to be like the waters of a river that continues in motion, continuous in motion. Was the love of St. Vincent and all the spirits of truth that who brought it to us and taught us now, and as a waters of a river in constant motion, we have to pass it through. We cannot stagnate there within us. We pass it through, let it go to others now. If we receive it from others, now we're going to pass it to others. And those who receive it from us will pass to others. And this current, like this river in motion, we are bringing happiness to ourselves and passing this happiness, this love to everyone that we meet along the way. But we have to have courage. We have to lose the weight in order to pass to the small cracks of the pond to be able to do those things. So this is really from something that, as I read, an invitation to work. And as Georgia tells us, our problem today is not of knowing. Our problem today is of doing it. And I think it's exactly what Spiritism brings to us again here. You have learned enough. You have got enough. Now get up and move. Go and do it. All right, we went over a few minutes, but if anyone has a comment. So thanks everyone. Let us close with our prayer.
Thank you.
Carol.
Thank you very much, Elmo. Beautiful, beautiful presentation. Thank you, everyone, as well. And thank you, Sarita.
Thank you.
Infinite Creator, all goodness and grace. Excuse me. We are grateful today to be together to share in the gospel teachings. Today we are studying about the material charity, moral charity, and beneficence. And we use the intelligence of our heart to have a better comprehension and understanding of these teachings, where we are all brothers and sisters, and we are told and commanded to love one another. May we apply in our daily life the golden rule, do unto others as we would have others do unto us or to you. True charity is doing good for the sake of doing good, not to keep a ledger. And charity can be practiced through thought, word, and deed. As we practice moral charity, we give what we are, and we give support. Through beneficence, we are to be good, useful, patient, and charitable. And we also include being good stewards of the earth. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, the helpers, the healers, the teachers who are with us today, providing us to remain attentive, to remain open in our hearts and minds, and to apply the charitable actions as we are able to do so each day through discernment. We give thanks for what we have received today, the understanding, the knowledge, the wisdom, the grace, and the love. For this, we are grateful. May we continue throughout the week with our prayers, with our studies and mindfulness, for we know that we are never alone. There is always assistance as we ask and do our part. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us to sustain us each day and each night and throughout the week. And during the season of light, the holiday season of Christmas, may we especially be attentive to the needs of others through charity, through our actions, through our self-giving. May we respect others, but may we also understand the needs of others more intently. As we close now, we humbly ask for the love, light, and peace of Christ to be with us and to continue throughout the week with our prayers, with our studies and mindfulness. May we close this meeting today in complete gratitude. We are thankful for all those who have participated, for the leadership, for the acknowledgement of the teachings. And may we go forth now and have our hearts elevated and our minds centered. Go forth now and reminding ourselves to be beacons of light. Go forth now in peace, so be it. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Elmo. It was a beautiful lesson.
Thank you, Elmo. Beautiful,
Thank you.
lovely, wonderful. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Elmo.
Have a nice
Everyone be well.
Be well.
Well, Wayne.
bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay,